Open Minds Media. The reality we live in can be a very strange place. Most of the time, fact being stranger than fiction. How will we ever start to understand this reality we live in unless we question everything? Join me and a guest as we unravel the mysteries of this reality, one topic at a time. This is Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones.
What is up, Inquirers, and welcome to the expanse of deep, open-minded conversation. I'm the one they call Shane, and I have some exciting news that I did announce last week, but I am going to announce it again because I know not all of you guys out there listen to every single episode, but I will be starting to do Inquiries of Our Reality and Bizarre Encounters live on YouTube almost every single night, actually. Usually, Bizarre Encounters records on Thursdays around 7 or 7:30 Eastern Central Time, and Inquiries of Our Reality typically records almost every weekday night around 9 p.m. EST. So if anybody wants to pop in any of those, check all those out. I probably won't be able to upload every single one onto social media, so you guys will probably just have to go and follow the Open Minds Media YouTube and make sure you guys hit the little notification bell up in the corner. And then anytime I go live, you guys will get a notification for it, and you guys will be able to come in and check it out, give your thoughts and ideas on any of the conversation that we're having on that and any particular day. And as a back end of that, for anybody that doesn't catch the lives, I probably won't be leaving them up on YouTube. Once they're finished, I'll probably end up pulling them off. But on the other side, all of those premium videos will be up on the Patreon. So if you guys don't mind supporting the show in that way, I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. But if not, you guys will be able to catch the live episodes on YouTube no matter what. Just make sure, again, you guys hit that notification bell up in the corner on the Open Minds Media YouTube so that you guys get notifications for it. And on the other end of that, the next episode of Bizarre Inquiries Live will be on May 1st. So if anybody wants to pop in and check that out, that'll be happening at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And if anybody has any questions, articles, or clips that they would like to submit for it, you guys know how to get a hold of me. Social media, Instagram, email, whatever method you guys want to use is completely okay. And if we don't end up using it on that show, we'll end up just pushing it to the next one. And just as an afterthought, thank you to everybody that popped into the last live episode of Bizarre Inquiries. It's always a lot of fun, and we always appreciate you guys for popping in and throwing in your guys' thoughts and everything on the show. And one last quick thing before we get into the show. If anyone is interested in being a guest on the show, or if anybody has had an encounter or experience that they would like to share on the show, or possibly have me investigate, you guys can email me at inquiriesofourrealitypodcast@outlook.com. Or you guys can call or text the hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And like I mentioned on the last few shows, that doesn't call in directly to me. It goes into a voicemail, and then I usually record it as like an MP3. So if you guys call into that number, don't think I'm going to answer on that first ring or anything like that. So if you guys want to call in, you guys want to leave some shout outs that I can play in the beginning of the show, you guys want to give some birthday wishes, anything like that, that's totally acceptable to use that line for that too. So again, if you guys missed it, that number is down in the show description so you guys can find it quick and easy. And you guys don't have to try to write it down or type it down real quick. And every single thing that I mention and will mention throughout the show is all available on the link tree, which of course is available down in that show description. And with that, let's get into the show. Please welcome to the show, author Jeb Shook. How's it going today, man?
Pretty good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure to have you on the show after having your name passed to me by Diego, actually, who is a good friend of the show, actually, and I guess kind of a wider community getting into like Dave Grant with Snarly Yow and all that, because apparently we had met at the last Cryptid Halloween, and I vaguely remember meeting you, but I don't think we actually got a chance to have a full-on conversation, so like I vaguely remember you, but it didn't end up sticking, so hopefully we can kind of make up for that today.
Yeah, I kind of remember you because you had your kids, and I think Diego introduced you to me. And I was sitting down majority of the time because I was on crutches because I had a little knee injury. But yeah, I do remember you leaving with some kids, so we did meet.
It's funny, but at least we both had something that differentiated us from somebody else. Like you're the guy with crutches, I was the guy with kids. So at least like there's some kind of trademark where we can be like, yes, I kind of remember that. So I guess
it helps.
Oh yeah. So I guess a good spot to start for anybody that may not be familiar with you or maybe hasn't been to an event that you've been at. Why don't you let everybody know a little bit about what you do, what your work is exactly, and how you got into it?
I'm primarily a horror author. I've got 4 books published in a horror. I got one that's more of an adventure type book, and I actually have a kids book out. But pretty much, I've always been into horror movies. I always liked creative type things. I created a comic book character when I was 12. I called him Sub-Zero. Do you know what happened right after I turned 12? Mortal Kombat came out.
Of course.
So that kind of ruined the name. I had to change. I actually sent it to Marvel when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and they actually responded to me, and they told me I was too young.
Group thinking, it's one of those things that it all hits everybody at once, and somebody has to create it, you know?
And I'm like, I could have swore, like, I think Venom was created by like a 16-year-old kid or something. I don't know, but so I kept that character forever. And actually, I'm working on a book with him now. I changed his name up and stuff, but I was a professional wrestler. That's how I met Diego. We used to wrestle each other a lot. And there's another guy named Scrapyard Dog who he wrote a couple books, and I was like, well, if he can do it, maybe I can do it. So I had no idea what I was doing. I just started playing and just slowly started figuring it out. And I studied a few things, watched some videos, and eventually it just fell together.
So before we get into your books and everything, because don't think I've actually had a chance to speak with like an honest wrestler on the show yet, because I've had a couple things set up with Diego, but he actually hasn't made his appearance on this show yet, even though I've been on his show. So this is the first time I've gotten a chance to talk to a wrestler. So at least coming from somebody that they're used to seeing like the wrestling that you see on TV and everything like that. I know that like the stuff that you guys do, where you guys have these like local venues, local setups and everything are a little bit different. What's kind of like the differentiation as far as like what it takes to be like a wrestler doing this type of stuff? Like, is it as staged as people think it is with like, all the wrestling competitions and everything, or like, what's kind of the background of it?
Really? Well, when you go to an indie show, some of them are really good and some of them are really horrible. It just depends on if the guys are trained to want to wrestle or if they want to go and play fight. I mean, everybody's like protect the business and kayfabe, but I don't think there's anybody over 12 years old that thinks 300-pound men can punch each other in the face for 15 minutes and there's no bruising. I mean, no blood. And if you watch UFC, you see real fights. So we all know it's a show. You do go in there and beat the crap out of each other. Me and Diego have laid each other flat a couple times, but I mean, it's a show. If anybody who gets mad at me for saying that, you're only fooling yourself. Everybody knows entertainment. It's no different than a movie, go and see a play, a TV show. The only difference is we don't have stuntmen. We are the stuntmen. And when I did it, we would know who the finish was going out. But for the majority of the match, we would just call it in the ring. We'd go out there and just, we might call spots, but we wouldn't have the entire match mapped out. We would just kind of go out there and do it. It's more fun that way. I think you have better matches that way. You have less mistakes that way. And then, like with our Russell Diego, we met by accident. I was going up to a show with a friend in Roxborough. Didn't know anybody. I was just going up and I was green. I really didn't, I wasn't doing it very long. He was coming down doing a double shot with one of his buddies in Virginia. And then I think they were in Virginia. Then they came down and hit North Carolina. And that's where we met. And they had us wrestle. And from the first time we met, we just clicked. And we went there, had a lot of fun. And we were two of the, and I'm about 6 foot tall. At the time, I was probably 200 pounds, maybe. We were some of the smaller guys because they had a couple of high flyers, a couple of the big brutes, but we actually got in there actually trying to wrestle with each other, and I think we had some of the better matches.
Just out of curiosity, like, how does somebody get into something like that? Is it just like a love of wrestling, and you just start kind of like finding like local rings to wrestle around at, or like how do you get into doing something like that? Because it seems like most of you guys like travel and stuff, and get to go to like other places to do some of these tournaments.
Well, I don't want to drop a lot of names because a lot of people do that. But I'm from a town called Cameron, North Carolina. If anybody is a hardcore wrestling fan, they'll know who else is from Cameron. I'm not going to drop their names. But They started out of here and they were going to WWE about the time I was starting to train. And there's another guy, I'll drop his name, Cameron Grimes. He was in WWE for a little while. He was Trevor Lee in TNA. I met him when he was like 2. And his dad helped train me with a few other guys. And that's how I got into it, working with those guys. And we wrestled all the indies for a while, and then we were doing shows at the Moore County Fairgrounds, and I met another guy, and he wanted to team up and start throwing shows, and we did that. And then at that point, Trevor Lee, Cameron Grouse, his name is Trevor, whatever you want to call him. I used to pick him up and take him to wrestling practice, and then he ended up making it to WWE, so it's great for him. But we would be going on weekdays and train at night, and we had a bunch of different guys from really, really green to really experienced and trying to make ourselves all better that way. But really, I was just in a good spot. There was local wrestlers. There was local wrestling shows. And, the guys around me were pretty decent. So I got in with good guys. If I lived in other spots of the country or other spots of the state, odds are I probably wouldn't have been able to get into it because I wouldn't have found anybody. But luckily for me, 15 miles down the road, a guy had a ring in his backyard. So,
and then it seems like with a lot of you wrestler guys, at least from the people I've met from Diego, maybe it's just because of Diego brings some good company with him. But it seems like the strange attracts. Like, is it something that is universal with a lot of you wrestling guys that you guys kind of dive into some of the weird and the more horror type stuff, or is it just kind of a section of you that kind of gravitate towards each other around Diego?
It could be that, but I think wrestling attracts a lot of creative people because you got to come up with your gimmicks and you got to come up with your storylines. You got to come up with your movesets. You got to come up with there's a lot involved to it. You don't just go out there and grab each other and throw each other around. And I think the more creative minded you are, the better you can become. And I think a lot of us just get old and beat up. Like I said, I've had both my shoulders cut. I've had knee surgery. I've got a torn ACL right now. I've got a herniated disc in my back. I mean, I'm moving fine, but I've got a lot of wear and tear on me. I can't wrestle anymore. So I find something else to do with my time. And, instead of coming up with wrestling matches, I'm coming up with stories.
Hey, I mean, at least you can direct your flow somewhere else. Because, I mean, like you were kind of saying, you can only beat up on your body for so much. As fun as it is, it's you can only take it so long. Then you got to start, using a different muscle. You got to start flexing your brain muscle.
Yeah, after 16 years, I was having real bad problems with my sciatic nerve. And me and a friend of mine went down and did a show it's somewhere towards the swamps out of the coast of North Carolina. I cannot remember the name of this little town. We went in this building, and I thought it was going to be a joke, but Steve Carino was there. He was running the show, and he's an old ECW champion, and there were some TNA guys there, and we did that thing, and then we shot over the next night and went to Havelock into the show, and I wrestled. I met some guy, I didn't know who he was. We wrestled, and my sciatic nerve went out again. And I had to take a superplex. And when I did, that's the suplex off the top rope. My sciatic nerve went out. I had to finish the match. And I had to pick him up on my shoulders because I do I call it the Dice Victory Driver. It's a DVD. And I got to flip a guy off my shoulder and drop on top of him. And I was almost crying trying to move because I had so much pain from that sciatic nerve. When I got in the back, I laid down and I figured, okay, I'll try to stretch it out. I couldn't get up. And there's these guys called the Gorilla Squad. They're these huge brothers, and they look like gorillas, and they call themselves the Gorilla Squad. I mean, these guys are big.
Fitting name.
They look tiny. And they literally had to pick me off the floor and help me go to my vehicle. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't have made it. And I had to drive home like that. So I was like, I was 34 years old at the time. I'm like, maybe it's time for me to quit. So I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going to make any money. This is more of a hobby. I've got to find something else to do that's not going to destroy my body. So people can say what they want about it, but it is very physical and it is very painful.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even just bumping around and stuff like that, even if you're not getting full-blown, punched in the face, just, throwing your body around, just doing, physical labor jobs, beat you up enough. I mean, people start getting issues with, their elbows and everything. Imagine wrestling where you're, shock impacting on that. Like you said, if as much as people want to say whatever they want about wrestling, it's a form of entertainment. It's not supposed to be honest, serious wrestling. But in the process of that, just like making a movie, stuntmen get beat up real good doing that stuff. It's strenuous, it's for entertainment. But yeah, it does take a hard toll on your body, man.
I've had people ask me, what do you think people like this? Or some people don't like it and they don't understand it. I'm like, people like violence. It's in our nature. I mean, look throughout history. Look at the Coliseum. Look at football. That's a violent sport. All these different things. But in the modern times, we want to see violence, but we don't want to see anybody actually get hurt. That's why wrestling is so great, because you can go out there and see two guys absolutely beat the crap out of each other, take an inhumane amount of punishment, but they're okay at the end of it. And if you ever notice when somebody seriously does get hurt, everything shuts down and everybody's just like worried. So, it's nice to be able to go out, watch it, suspend disbelief, and know that at the end of the night, nobody's actually hurt. Because, it ain't like a boxing match where somebody, is having brain damage, or MMA where a guy breaks his leg, or, something like that. So, I like watching, all the combat sports, but at the end of the night, it's nice to go watch a fun show. It's like a movie. You watch a good movie, all the explosions, all the stuff, but nobody really got hurt. So, it's entertainment.
And just like a movie, too, you fall in love with the character because, a celebrity is a celebrity. Like, a celebrity fighter is a celebrity fighter. Like, they're real people at the end of the day. But, the persona that you create for wrestling, it's like, you have this full stat card, you have this full bio. Like, you fall in love with the characters, realistically, more than anything. Because, that's what happens with all the old school guys. That's why everybody loves Hulk Hogan and stuff still, just because he's a character. He's a persona,
Yeah, he's a perfect example, because if there's ever a character that is his whole gimmick is he tries to live it, but if you watch it, he goes straight into character all the time. It's just
I don't think he knows how to do it anything else now.
And if you've ever seen his background, he's had so many surgeries. He's so beat up. He's got fake everything. That man has destroyed himself in the name of wrestling. It's like he said it's the hardest fake sport he's ever been in, because they forgot to tell him it was fake. That's why he's so beat up.
Yeah, I remember seeing
doing that leg drop for 30 years. It messed his hips up, his spine up, everything.
I remember seeing all the horror stories for what was that guy's name? He was in the 90s / early 2000s. He used to wear the mask and he did this Mr. Sacco thing.
Mick Foley.
Yeah, Mick Foley.
Mankind.
Yeah, he got destroyed doing those cage matches. And I remember seeing that behind the scenes documentary. He was talking about how annihilated his body was, how many surgeries he went through, that the blood under his mask most of the time wasn't blood packs. He'd actually beat up his face that much inside the mask that he'd take it off and his whole face would be swollen. That was crazy.
Did you watch the pay-per-view, the Hell in a Cell, where Taker put him through the top of the cage and his tooth was sitting in his nose?
Yeah.
That was legit. Actually, I got to meet him in Myrtle Beach. We were we had one of the biggest shows. We had 1,500 people show up. We're doing a show at Merle's Inlet, South Carolina. And before that, Myrtle Beach, Mitsubishi was doing meet and greet with Mick Foley. And we had one guy taking photographs for $20 a piece. And my job was I was running my mouth trying to get people to buy them. And when we got done, we spent, 12 hours in there with Mick. And afterwards, we got to go hang out with him for the rest of the night. So it was kind of a cool night.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome.
I don't want to say the establishment we went to, but it was more of an adult-style establishment, and he disappeared after that. We don't know what happened. So, once he disappeared, we didn't see him again after that.
Good old VIP rooms. You know how it goes when you got some money?
Yeah, he disappeared. I'm like, well, that was nice meeting him.
Hey, at least it's an opportunity, though. At least you have a story. You could say that you at least got to meet him for a second, right?
Yeah, he's pretty. Actually, the show we had in Merle's Inlet is a place called Suck Bang Blow, which sounds dirty, but it's a motorcycle bar. So, the engine sucks it in, bang, and blows out the back. So it's a funny little play on words. But we had the Powers of Pain, which is the Warlord and the Barbarian. Raven was there. Some people might know who Champagne is. He was a real big guy in the Indies. He's one of the few guys that ever wrestled a WWE pay-per-view without being under contract. He was a Rock's personal assistant. The Prince of Punk, Shannon Moore, was there. Robert Gibson was there. I want to say Bobby Eaton was there. We had a bunch of big names there. So that show was great. And I thought it was funny, out of all the big names, the front of the Myrtle Beach newspaper was Michael Yamaha put me in a rear chin lock. Two indie guys. But yeah, we got all these, former NWA, WWE, and WCW stars at the show, and they got a picture of him choking me on the front of the newspaper. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah, I was going to say, sometimes you just got to have the best picture. It doesn't matter about who the best star is. If you have the best action shot, that's the one they're going to use.
Well, I asked how that happened, and the guy that was really helping run everything. You got to let my dogs get excited. But the guys that were getting, the guy that was helping pretty much put it all together, gave the people at the newspaper a thumb drive, and they probably had 2,000 pictures on it. And of those 2,000 pictures, that one of Michael Yamaha choking me is the one they picked.
I almost wonder if it was the first one they picked, or if they literally went through them and was like, yep, this is the one. Hold on tight, guys. We'll be right back after this brief commercial break. But in the meantime, Don't forget to follow Inquiries of Our Reality on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to check out Open Minds Media on YouTube and TikTok. I'd love to hear from you guys, so feel free to leave a comment or spark up a conversation. I love getting to know you guys. And now back to the show.
You know what? I don't care. It worked out good for me because I got on the front page of the newspaper, so it worked out.
I was going to say, I'd still end up clipping it, put it up in a frame. Like, why not? It's always something to have, too.
I've got it somewhere, but I can't find it, and it's bugging me because I wanted to put it up in a frame, but I can't find it because we did another show in Greensboro, and we had Paul Bearer there, and I had everybody. I took one of the flyers, said every single person there signed it, including Paul Bearer, and it was right before he died. And I've heard stories of Paul Bearer like trashing the indies and talking crap. And when I sat there, I couldn't wrestle because I had another version of my hip injury. So I sat beside him doing the music, and me and him hung out all night. And Paul Bearer was the coolest. We couldn't use that name. We had to call him Percy Pringle because of the WWE owning the name thing. But afterwards, he went on his whatever his little thing was he had on the internet, and he did nothing but praise us and was like super cool to us. So, he was a great guy.
Weird question too, before we start diving into your books and everything too. So like when you have like a persona, you have a character and you get into a contract, just out of curiosity, like would the company then own like your name? So like if you decided that you didn't want to do it anymore or whatever, they still own the name of your wrestling name, and like could they replace you and like have somebody use your same persona?
I think in some cases they can and some they don't. Like if I was to have made it somewhere bigger than where I did, they would have gave me a different gimmick. They'd have changed my name. They'd have done whatever. But they had the fake Razor and the fake Diesel back in the 90s. They owned those characters. Even though Scott Hall created Razor Ramon, the WWE owned it. So, they had a fake Razor go out. So, I mean, I guess it depends on the ownership of the name. I guess I know WWE was real big on owning the names. So
I guess it kind of depends on the character too, because it's like if you're one of the mask characters, like you can easily replace them as long as you can find somebody around that size. But if you're a character that you're one of the guys that doesn't wear a shirt, you're just wearing like tights or whatever, and you got your face out or something, like can't really replace that character very easy. Yeah, you own the name, and I'm sure that they use it for leverage for whatever they might want to use it for if you want your name back. But the ones like Kane, for example, if they wanted to, I'm sure they could own that name and just find a dude that's like 6 foot something and say, all right, here's a mask, have at it.
They actually had a guy do that for a while. If you watch, you could tell he was a little bit shorter. I think it was Doc Gallows or somebody played Kane's character for like 6 months. If you watched it on TV, if you look carefully, he did a really good job, but you could tell he's a little shorter and a little smaller than Kane. And a couple of the moves weren't quite right. But
was he like injured or something around that time?
The Clown. What's that?
Do they do that for like injuries or something sometimes? Like if somebody's going to be gone for a few weeks from an injury?
I don't recall why they did that with Kane. I don't know, but there's been several characters with a mask on they've done. Like they used to do what did they call them? The Conquistadors or something. The guys who wore the gold mask and the solid gold outfits, and it was really corny looking, but they'd have like different tag teams run out and it'd be somebody different every time.
Yeah, they looked like the luchador guys, right?
Yeah, but pretty much, but it was like random people under the mask every time.
Just swap them out.
Yep, pretty much, yeah.
So, kind of diving into your books. So you mentioned that you kind of got into writing your books after you had that last injury, or were you already kind of like inspired to write a little bit, so then you finally just started to kind of like put it into action after that injury?
No, actually, that happened in 2014. I wrote my first book I published it, I believe, 2021. I just got thinking about it. I knew some other guys who wrote books, and I'm like, well, if they can do it, let me give it a try. And, the job I had a lot of freedom where I could have a phone going, and I was listening to a lot of YouTube videos, and I started coming up on like Slavic vampires and like not the Hollywood stuff we see, but like the old traditions of how it started. And I got that, and I started getting ideas, and then I started just writing them down. And then I started trying to figure out how do you make a book. So I had the idea I was going to make a 10,000 word book. So it'd be a small story. It'd be 1,000 words of a chapter, and I'd do 10 chapters. And that's how I did the first book. And I would just literally write a story out. When I get to the end of it, I'd just continue the story at the next page. And I kind of had an idea where I wanted each story to go so I could kind of direct the way the book would go. But I've gotten a lot better since then.
So, at least to inspire you to start writing like horror style books, did you like grow up having any experiences or anything like that, or were you just interested in just like dark folklore to begin with?
Well, yeah, I had some experience. Well, one, I'm probably what's wrong with me now. I was like 5 years old watching slashers. I mean, 1985, I'm five. I'm watching Freddy kill people, watching Jason kill people, watching Leatherface. It never bothered me. I never had nightmares. I thought it was entertaining. But my parents are from your neck of the woods in Michigan. What part of Michigan are you in?
I'm in the Metro Detroit area.
Okay, yeah, I'm about 3 hours north. I don't know if you know where Mount Pleasant, Big Rapids, all
Yeah.
that stuff is at.
Yep.
Yeah, there's little towns between there called Barrett and Macosta, Remus, that little area. That's where the majority of my family's actually from. And if you're going out of M66, out of Barrington, there's a big farmhouse on the left. That was my grandfather's farm, and that's where my aunt inherited the house. And we lived there when I was a kid for a while. And we were told that we thought the adults were messing with us, that it was haunted because I think that I could be wrong, but I believe the house was built somewhere around 1920. And every decade, some kids had died because there's a little pond and a creek in front of it and a bridge, and they died by that bridge. And we were like the first generation to break that, even though my brother literally almost was on a sled and almost got run over by an 18-wheeler. He literally turned at the last second and went by him. But they were telling us it was haunted. So we were, little kids, and we were being little smart asses. And we're up in the top stairs of this old farmhouse saying, if you're here, show us blood. We're just running our mouth. All of a sudden, books flew off the shelf at us. We're like, we start screaming and running down the stairs, and the adults think we're messing with them and making it up. And I'm like, no, that really happened. And let's see, I had another one. I guess we've all had that crazy ex-girlfriend that was like nuts and lived on drama, but I had one that was really bad. But everybody said her house was haunted and her brother had died like a long time before we met. But everybody kept saying they would see a guy standing like in the shadow next to the bathroom when you look over and no one's there. I had never seen it. But one night she was on one of her rampages and I just lost my temper. And I saw somebody staring at me. Between her kitchen and the living room was a wall with like glass painted windows in it. And I could have swore I saw somebody glaring at me with a mad look on his face. I looked again and he was gone. And she said it was Bill. That was the name of her brother. And I thought she was full of crap. But anyway, I got mad and went to bed and she slept on the couch. Well, later that night, I'm in this bed and I feel my blanket coming off of me. And it gets about halfway down and I think she's messing with me. So I grab it and I snatch it back up real hard. All of a sudden, it gets snatched off of me. I jump up to look around. I'm the only one in the room. And I know she didn't shut that door and open that door without me hearing it. I open the door. She had one of those really like long living rooms. She's asleep on the couch on the other side of the house. That freaked me out. And I was like, get up and come to bed. Well, a couple hours later, I'm sleeping, and in the middle of the night, I can't breathe. It feels like somebody is choking me. And I reach over and I start slapping her. She looks over and I grab my throat. She says, Bill, let him go. And the second she said that, I could breathe.
Dang.
And people think I'm making this up because I'm a fictional author, but this happened. And then the third thing that happened to me was
just to make a quick comment, though, about that. I mean, a lot of the time, authors will take their inspiration from things that they've experienced. So it's like, a lot of people say like, oh, horror authors having, paranormal experiences. Like there's a reason they became a horror author. Is either one, they're interested in that stuff to begin with, or two, they had experiences and they use that as inspiration. So, I'm one of those people that it's like, if you're a horror author, I almost expect that you've probably had some type of at least one weird experience.
Well, it's weird because if I heard somebody else tell these stories, I'd be like, he's full of crap. I really would. I probably wouldn't believe him. But the fact that I'm not making the story up is what scared me the most. Like I said, but my fiance, her sister, unfortunately was like 37 and had an embolism or something. And she was in the hospital and died. And this was several years ago. But every time I was sitting there, I kept kind of turning my head and looking because I was seeing her sister stand next to her body, staring at herself. And I could only see it from like my peripheral. And I didn't say anything, but I actually said when we started talking about it, she saw me looking over a bunch and didn't understand why. When I told her the story, she looked at me and said her sister, she's adopted from Korea, where her adopted sister was there too. Her adopted sister had already told her the same story a couple of months before I told her, and me and her sister never talked. And we had the exact same story of seeing her standing next to her. We could describe the exact same outfit. She's doing the exact same thing. We had the exact same story, but we never talked to each other. So that was kind of an odd coincidence, I guess you could say.
That's one of those things, though, that like it brings more validity to it because, everybody's had like a weird, unexplainable experience. But if you have somebody that's on the other side that's seen the same thing happen, like it connects more stuff in your own mind where you start questioning yourself a little bit less than what you may have actually seen, though. Like those are some of the best experiences.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I live in the Carolinas and her sister lives right outside of Austin, Texas. So she went to Texas to see her sister. Her sister told her the story, and then when she come back, it was months later. I finally told her, and she was like, "Oh my God!" Then she told me what her sister said. It was her sister in a white gown, staring at herself, looking confused and sad. I was like, we told her the exact same story, and she's like, "Did you two talk to each other?" I'm like, "No, I ain't talked to your sister." And so it's crazy that stuff like that happens. So it makes you wonder. It's like I don't want to say I'm a believer, a non-believer. I just got things I just cannot explain that are really, really odd. It makes you question things.
So have you noticed that just because of you having more of like the paranormal type experiences that you've kind of seen that reflect a little bit more like in your books? Because like I know people that have had like Sasquatch experiences, like they'll tend to kind of reflect more of like the cryptid type experiences in their book. But yeah, you mentioned the first one that you were doing like the vampires in your first book. So have you noticed that like your experiences have kind of like reflected what you write about?
Yeah, I'd say a little bit just because, I've thought about things. And then when you're trying to get creative, you just kind of start going everywhere, trying to come up with something new that's different because you don't want to keep repeating the same thing everybody else has done. And the personal experiences really do help. I can't say I've ever met a Sasquatch because if I did, I would probably run for my life. But
you might be able to take him on in a wrestling match, though. I don't know, man.
No,
Tag team you and Diego. I think you guys could take on a Squatch.
I think Harry and the Hendersons are probably going to win that one. They're pretty big.
You got to hope you run into a juvenile. 6 foot, you guys can take him.
Show up. I'm tagging out and letting Diego have it.
Hold that thought. We'll be back in a flash. But if you don't like hearing the ads, then I have a solution for you. You can get ad-free and early access to this show and Bizarre Encounters with Shayn Orin on the Open Minds Media Patreon for just $1 a month. That's less than the price of a bag of chips, and it's a great way to support the show and all the hard work behind it. And if you're interested in merch store discounts or premium video versions of the show, then there are a few other tiers with additional benefits and 7-day free trials available. Now let's get back into it. So kind of diving a little bit more into your books too. So I've had a lot of people that when it comes to like writing their books, they've kind of noticed that their interests will kind of like shuffle and kind of like phase in as they kind of cycle through books, or maybe sometimes they won't even want to touch the same thing twice. As far as you've said that you've had a handful of books that you've written now, what has kind of been like your transition of like topics that you've dived into? Do you kind of like to stay along the same lane, or do you kind of like to mix it up within each book?
Well, the problem is when I'm writing, I start to get bored, or I hit a block, and then I'll go to a different book. So, like when I'm writing Tempest, the Night Stalker, it's about an old school Slavic vampire, and they're more like zombies that feed on blood over what we think of as vampires. And while making the book, I didn't really have a guideline for it. And in the middle of the book, I have a hunter that comes in through what's called the Borgo Pass into Romania, and it's a guy called Semi. And I'm sorry, Akachi. Semi's another character. I got so many, it's hard to keep them apart. I'm actually looking at my books right now. I got them all lined up. But so what I did was when I got done with that one, I started working on the Akachi book. And what I did is I had this, it's pretty much Akachi as a child. His family is killed by the same vampires that are running through and creating all this chaos. So he's chasing them across Africa and across Europe. And what happens is at the end of Akachi, he gets injured and he goes to France to hide, to heal. He's in like a halfway house. And then he hears about Tempest. So he goes to find Tempest. And at the end of that book, he's actually crossing the Borgo Pass, which is the Tempest book, is where he's entering. So the books cross. I did another one. Like I said, I was a wrestler. My name was Rolling Dice, and I had a buddy of mine I wrestled a lot. His name was Gluteus Maximus. He had a Roman gimmick, and I was trying to come up with ideas for books, so I took some inspiration from wrestling. I took his character that was a Roman soldier, and he gave me permission to use his name. He didn't know what I was doing. It was great. I thank him for letting me do it. But I turned mine into like a Leonidas character. for Greece, and I've pretty much had just a war where my character gets kidnapped, taken to fight the Colosseum. He's got to fight. It's kind of like Hercules' labors. You got to win so many fights to win your freedom, and then to end, he is to fight Bludius Maximus to try to see if he can win his freedom and go back to Greece. I got a voodoo guy. I'm looking at him now. I'm just going through because I've written so many and I'm working on so many right now. It's kind of hard to keep everything separate in my head. But I got one called Papa Gumbo, which is about a voodoo man from he's from Haiti and he comes to Louisiana. He kind of starts the whole voodoo trend in Louisiana, and he also is the creator of gumbo. I got it. Let's see. Then I got one that's just sent me, which is the original hunter that Akachi learns from. Is his story. Then I wrote a kid's book called Everyone Picks Their Nose, which has actually been my bestseller.
Good title.
I got the inspiration. I can't even speak at this point. For that, I was in Florida last year with my girlfriend's best friend and her family, and they had a set of twins that are like, I don't know, 3.5, 4 years old, and their nose just ran the whole time, and they were just always doing this. And at first, it's gross, but you get used to it. And that's where I come with the idea. Everyone picks their nose. So, and the book is like huge too. It's like a big wide book, and in the back of it, I've got like a caricature of both kids, and a thank you to them because they gave me the idea. So, and they didn't know I did it, right? So they're like 5 years old now, and they get a copy of the book, and they realize they're in it. So their mom sent me a big thing of them holding the books up, smiling because they're in the book. It's kind of a neat little thing.
Well, that's awesome. I mean, especially that title. It's just one of those ones that'll draw in every kid because anybody that has a kid, you know that they're just boogery from the time they come out until about the time they reach like 9 or 10 years old. That's when they stop being so boogery because they actually learn how to blow their nose for themselves. But
maybe because I kind of got the sense of humor of a juvenile, like a middle school kid or something. I got another one that I haven't published yet, but it's called Everybody Poops. That can be another kid's book.
Is that going to be a potty training book, or is it more of like a humor joke book?
It's just going to be a funny book about kids pooping.
Fair enough.
So, it's just stuff for kids. Something they might find. I hope they find entertaining. Last night, actually, most of my books go through Zombie Media Publications. And they've been great. But I sent one in. It's called the Michigan Dogman. There's a legend in Michigan about the Dogman. It's kind of a hybrid of a werewolf type character. But that's the one that, most of my books have been more short stories, like, 10,000 words, ish. This book's about 300 pages and it's more of a novel size. So, if you like horror stories, it's kind of what the majority of what I'm writing, I'm coming up with. I'm also working on a slasher called Solomon Jacks. He's actually in the bayous of Louisiana. He's just a big. How many different ways can you do a slasher? It's kind of a Jason Voorhees Leatherface type character. He's just set in the woods or the bayou of Louisiana. He's got a big meat hook with a chain, and anybody comes in his territory has to deal with him. And I've got a protagonist that's he's a retired professional fighter, and he's trying to change the way his life is going because he's retired. And he becomes a scientist, and he's trying to study unknown plants and animals in the bayou, and they kind of meet. So, that's going to be an interesting book when I get done with it.
So you said the Dogman one, that's one you're currently working on?
Actually, I just sent it to the publisher last night.
So I want to kind of dive into this one a little bit because being a Michigander, of course, Michigan Dogman is something I always like talking about. And I ended up doing a 3-part series for it on my other show, Bizarre Encounters, at one point. But as far as like Michigan Dogman goes for this story, are you kind of covering some of like the main events or anything that happened with it? Or are you kind of doing it like your own like fictional story about the Michigan Dogman?
Oh, it's my own fictional story. I mean, I've got aspects of the legend behind it. Like I said, I'm from North Carolina, but I got a lot of ties to Michigan. I actually lived there for a few years when I was a kid, and when I was coming up with ideas, that's just one that popped in my head. And some of it's tied into it, but like I'm having it centered around the towns I just named earlier. Mount Pleasant, Big Rapids, Remus, the small towns where most of my family's at. But that one, it took a while because I did a lot of research to try to make it, I don't want to put it semi-authentic to some of the stories and the tales of the Dogman, but it's just, I think that's one that a lot of people are outside of like Michigan or Wisconsin may not be familiar with that character like they are. It's like Sasquatch and, all the other ones. So I thought maybe that would be a good way to kind of add some, notoriety to him.
I'm sure like I've dug a lot into like the whole Dogman thing, and it definitely goes back. And there's a lot of people that talk about like the biblical, like dog-headed people and everything. So who knows exactly where it started at? But as far as like dogmen go for the United States, it's like, the first one that became really, really big was the Beast of Bray Road. And then you have like the Land Between the Lakes stuff that happened in the 80s. And then all the dogman stuff is starting to rise up now. But I don't know if it's from the song exactly or if it's actually something that was marked down at some point, because when you start diving into the Michigan Dogman, a lot of like the folklore kind of starts blending with the song, where you don't know if it's just lyrics in the song or if there actually is some validity to the claims. But according to that, the first Michigan Dogman, encounter would have been 1887 in like Wexford County. So, if you're looking at it that way, like Michigan would have been one of the first places claiming to have like dogman sightings in the United States, at least in like more modern cryptid history. And it just, kind of fell out of the way, I think, because of the Beast of Bray Road, just because, Linda Godfrey ended up writing about it. And I feel like there's been a lot of people who have written about the Michigan Dogman, but it doesn't seem to have blown up as much as all the other Dogman stories, even though it seems to be one of the OGs when it comes to these stories. And one of the most violent, weirdly enough, if you dive into the Manistee stuff.
Yeah, I believe if they would make a true horror movie about the Dogman, his popularity would explode. Because, I was living in Michigan by the time they came out. You're talking about the song the little DJ put out back in like 87
Yeah, the
or
Steve
whatever
Cook
it was.
song. Yep, back in like 78 or something like that.
In Michigan. I was actually in Michigan when it came out. But, it's kind of, mine's going to be, if anybody's want to research it, don't look at my book as a research. This is going to be a fictional story. This is not going to be like, well, I know I read this book and not mine.
Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back with that deep conversation you crave. But just a quick reminder, if you'd like to snag some gear for this show, Bizarre Encounters, or one of your favorite cryptids or topics, hop on over to the Open Minds Media merch store for a wide range of designs with new drops regularly. And t-shirts now for the low price of just $15.68 plus shipping. And now let's get back into it. So, at least, without giving too much away, of course, because you want people to read it, I'd love to kind of dive into what exactly, the main idea of the story is for the Dogman, and also in the process of it, too. I'm sure that, while you're doing your research, you probably came upon some really interesting Dogman stories. So, if you have a couple of those that are your personal favorite, too, I'd love to hear them.
My biggest thing was like it starts off talking about the Chippewa Indians, their experiences with them, what they think, and then it dives into some of the earlier Dogman attacks, and there's a bunch of fictional attacks. But I'm trying to think of I sat and watched so many videos and read so many stories. I'm trying to remember them because they kind of just start to melt together after a while. But the one with the lumberjacks is pretty good. Trying to think, because like I said, my mind, I've got such bad ADHD.
Just to throw this one in here, too, for anybody that may not have heard the lumberjack story, I'm just going to quickly throw it in. So, like the 1887 encounter, the one for Wexford County, it's just a simple, quick little experience. But basically what they claimed had happened was they had seen like a pack of dogs that were going into like a stump or like a pack of raccoons or something like that. And they went up to the stump and they went to go and shoot one of these things in it. And supposedly this like dogman thing came out and stood up on two legs and they ended up taking off on it. But I just want to throw that one in there for anybody that isn't too familiar with the Michigan Dogman, because I thought that was a really interesting encounter, as short as it is.
If anybody really likes like horror or cryptids or any type of stories like that, really research the Michigan Dogman. That's the one that I really think is underrated. It doesn't get a lot of attention, but it's one of the better ones. I'm sorry, but a Dogman is more scary than any Bigfoot. You can give me the scariest Sasquatch you want. The Dogman is going to be much scarier.
There's like endless stories.
They do so much with it.
There's endless stories of like truckers near the Manistee that have like put shots into these things too. Like it's one of those things that it's not just like I saw it off in the distance. Like if you really start digging into this stuff, like there's a lot of like firsthand like aggressive encounters with these Michigan dogmen. And then that's where the other weird part kind of comes in with it too, is it seems like there's a lot of like weird cover up with the Michigan dogman, which is maybe why it hasn't become as popularized as a lot of the other dogmen. Like, I've had a handful of people on the show that I've talked to afterwards that have said that, you know, they went into the Manistee and they were going to go like dogman hunting essentially. And they had like unmarked vehicles like stop them and basically say like, we know what you're doing here and you need to turn around. And even some of the truckers that have put some shots into these things, like there was the main trucker that's I think he went on a handful of shows talking about his experience, but basically he stopped to be able to check one of his tires. And when he was going to check his tires, he was hearing some noise off like in the brush and everything on the one sides. And this was like right on this highway that goes through the Manistee. And he went to go get into his truck after checking his tires, and he heard something running up. And this dog man basically came up to the window and he put 2 shots into this thing and watched it fall and roll. And the guy took off. He saw another car that drove by, so he ended up doing a loop to come back around to make sure that, you know, they weren't in any kind of danger or anything because of what he just experienced. And they were like, oh, you know, we just saw this thing that like fell into the woods and it took off, blah, 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 blah. And the trucker ended up getting like calls from some random number basically saying that like, oh, you damaged our property and you're going to be responsible for it. And that was like why he didn't talk about it for years. So yeah, that's like the Michigan dogman stuff. Like, it just seems like there's like a lot more cover up on it than other stuff. So maybe that's why it hasn't popularized, is because maybe there is some type of like government involvement in this particular, you know.
Well, if it's going to be, you know, a fictional story and it's just another, you know, thing people say doesn't exist, why would there be anybody trying to cover it up? I mean, why would, you know, they'd be like, have a fun story. But when you got somebody that's actively trying to shut you down, it makes you wonder what's going on.
I mean, one of the weirdest things that I came across when I was doing research for it was this OnStar call that came from Troy, Michigan, where it was supposedly like a recording of somebody getting like attacked by a dog man. And I played it on the show. And as I was like, I'm like getting ready to do the show, and every single time I find this clip, it just disappears. Like the website gets deleted, like whatever. So I was like chasing this clip, and I eventually got to the point where I got annoyed. So I just recorded it and made sure I had it on my board. And it's, like I said, it's an OnStar call. So a lot of people that when I played on the show said like, oh, one side sounds recorded. And I'm like, yeah, that's because it's OnStar. Like, they have their script that they have to go through regardless. Like, if you listen to all these call-in places like that, they have a script they got to run through. So of course one side is going to sound scripted because it is. But basically in the call, these people are on the side of the road, and there's like 2 rush-ins where like this dog man basically like ambushes the car. And in the last one, like the call cuts off and the OnStar person's like saying, hello, like, is anybody there? And they sound like they're a little bit more worried, but you know, that's one thing. Like, you hear that, maybe you think it's something weird on the internet. But the weirdest part about it was the following year, OnStar released this werewolf prank attack call that was just this completely like jokingly humorous thing. And every single time you try to look up that one weird call from the OnStar in Troy, this other call pops up. So I was like, that's weird that it's just, they make this prank call that's basically along the lines of this call, and then you can't find this call on the internet because it keeps getting scrubbed everywhere. So like, how weird is that? Like, if it was just some prank joke, whatever, like, it would be all over YouTube. So why does it keep getting pulled off everything unless there's something weird to it?
That's a very good question. It's like, why would you do that? I mean, that definitely sounds like some type of cover up.
That's what I'm saying, man. The Michigan Dogman stuff, like, you could write your own stories with that, man. Like, I don't know what you dived into exactly with this first book, but the second one, man, you could have the government involved, like black SUVs, like all that stuff, man. You could expand that story like crazy.
See, now I'm getting ideas in my head. I gotta write them down at the show so I can start working on another one.
Yeah, dude, start diving into like all the weird aspects of like the cover-up stories of the Michigan Dogman, because there's this other location that I found when I was doing research too, where it's this Crystal something campground or something like that, and there's been like a lot of like weird cover-ups there where people have like basically been ambushed by stuff inside of like their cabins, and the police will show up and they'll basically be like, oh, you saw nothing, it was this animal, it was this. Like, it almost just seems like they're trying to cover up for, like, it's Michigan, man. Like we ain't got nothing that's trying to break down a door to come in and attack people. Like, northern Michigan, we do have some like little bears and stuff, but they're not big enough that they're going to be ambushing anybody's door or anything. Like, they're clearly covering something up. And there's been a handful of people that have claimed to have seen dogmen in that area. So most of the like idea is that there's like dogmen encounters in this area, and they're just trying to keep this park running and just trying to like cover it up. Like, oh, you saw nothing. Don't worry about it. Nothing.
You could probably write an entire book just on the stories everybody's told. If you can dig enough of those up and dig deep enough, you can get a really good book out of that.
Oh yeah, easily. So, I mean, considering that you were from Michigan too, well, not from Michigan, but you lived in Michigan for a while. Did you by chance like hear of anybody that you knew personally that was like talking about possibly seeing a dogman or any type of like dogman encounters or like family stories or anything like that?
No, I wish I could say yes, but I really haven't. When I was a kid, a couple of wolverines got loose. They said, we don't have them here. Well, there were two in my aunt's field. My dad and a couple guys went out, and I don't know what happened. They wouldn't let us go outside, so I don't know what the end result for that was. But now the worst thing I saw was, I was living in farm country for a few years, and, bulls and wild animals and snakes, stuff like that. But nobody's ever come to me with a dogman story. I wish I could say it was, something cooler than that, have a good story, but I really, outside of just reading stuff and researching it, that's where I got it from. I don't really have any personal experience with it.
So just out of curiosity, I know you said in the beginning that, you've only had your experiences, like you don't know any of the stuff for sure, but like, just from the stuff that you've dived into with like dogman, like do you put any like validity into the claims? Like whether or not you fully believe it or not, like do you think that there's anything to it personally from what you've seen?
I believe that some of the people, I mean, there's always going to be pranksters. Somebody's just trying to get attention. Somebody's going to fake stuff, but some of those people truly believe what they're saying. And okay, you can say, paranoia, somebody's crazy, whatever you want to say. But when you get multiple people who truly believe what they saw was real, you got to start to kind of take a serious look at it, because how many times can somebody seriously believe they've run into something and you deny it? I mean, so it makes you wonder if there's not something out there somewhere that's just really hard to find or is really good at evading people.
See, and a lot of people will claim with the Michigan Dogman that people didn't start making these reports until after the song came out. And like Steve Cook said, as soon as he created the song and he played it on the air, that like he started getting a bunch of calls in and everything. And I mean, you can look at that one of two ways. Either one, people are just making stuff up because they heard the song. Or on the other side, people didn't have a context of what they were seeing until they heard this song. The guy may have like written it out of some type of like group thought, like almost like we were talking about earlier in the show with the whole Sub-Zero thing. Even if the guy never saw a dogman, there may have just been something that needed to be created in this area, and whatever you want to believe in, like there's something weird to it where when something needs to be created, it will be created. And with that, I mean, it gave people a context of maybe something they were seeing. So, maybe the upspike in reports after the song wasn't due to people making it up from the song, but again, rather people having a context of like, that's that thing I saw. Like it was a dogman. Like now I know what it is. Now I don't feel crazy because at least somebody else is talking about it. And especially like on the radio, and the context of that song is like, he's basically just running through all these different encounter stories. So it wasn't just like I saw a dogman as a song. It was like, it sounded like basically like a poem of like encounter stories. So it like made people, I think, feel like comfortable to actually say what they saw if they did see something. But I don't know, there's a lot of like weird stuff with the dogman stuff. Like there's, even with Michigan, I mean, there's the videos that go back to like the 70s of like these weird, I'm trying to remember the name of it. There was an exact name for these tapes. It was whatever the family's last name was that found them. But essentially they found these old family videos from like mid 70s maybe. And they were like out on like a camping trip or something with the family. And they ended up recording like this thing running in at them as they were taking off. And I mean, there's a lot of weird backing in the Michigan Dogman. Like you said, it doesn't get nearly as much recognition as it deserves. Hold that thought. Inquiries of Our Reality will be right back after this brief commercial break. And now let's dive back in.
Another question you got to ask yourself too is what if you've seen it, but you don't want to come out and say it because you're afraid people are going to look at you like you're a quack? Because like if I walk out and see Sasquatch, am I really going to tell anybody? Because who's going to believe me? they're going to think I'm making it up. I actually got one story that I can tell. I live right off of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'm not far from it. And one day I was in my work truck, because I used to work for the county, and I seen you ever see the cigar shaped UFOs?
Yeah.
I was staring at one. I'm sitting in disbelief because down from my house there's these two water towers. I was sitting next to them looking, and I called my mom and said, "You are not going to believe this. I'm staring at a UFO." She's like, "What?" And I said, "No, seriously, I'm staring at a cigar." And she's like, "What?" Like, she just did not believe me. And I wasn't. It was the way the light was reflecting. Literally, I watched this UFO fly across the sky for about 2 or 3 minutes, and then it turned. It was a damn plane, but the way the light reflected off of it, it looked like if you ever watch like the UFO videos, they're showing the cigar shaped UFOs, it was a dead perfect replica of that. It's just the way the light was hitting it. But as soon as that plane made a left turn, I could see it was a plane. It was a military plane.
That's why every time I see something weird in the sky, like, I got to sit there and like stare at it. Like, I'm that one that like, I'll see something weird and I'll sit there and stare at it for like 5 minutes until I can like get a good impression or like view of it, because I don't want to like see a plane and think it's like a UFO, but on the other side it's like, you want to be sure of what you're seeing, and if you look up, people see enough stuff, so there's definitely stuff going on up there. It's just a matter of we've moved into a spot in society where just people don't look up enough anymore. Unless, they're actively trying to look for a UFO.
Do you want to, if you do actually see something, would you say it? Because I actually saw that little cigar shape. Now, granted, it was an airplane. I did see it turn, and once the light hit it differently, I could tell it was a Fort Bragg plane. But again, I was calling my mama like, "You ain't going to believe this." And she was just like, "Uh-huh." Like, she was like, "What are you?" Because, I really don't say a lot of crazy stuff to her. And she's like on the phone, like, "Why are you telling me this?" Like, she didn't buy any of it, and I'm staring at it. So, I mean, whether it was a plane or UFO, I saw it, and she didn't believe me.
If you're around a military base too, like, who knows what type of stuff they could potentially be testing out there? And technically, it still fits into the term of unidentified flying object. If they're testing out some type of like black budget military planes or something like that, like when people call you and say they saw a UFO around like a military base, like, there's no doubt in my mind, yeah, you probably did see something weird, because they got to take their opportunities to test things. And how many people are reporting stealth bombers as UFOs until like 10 years later when we realized that they were making planes in this like black triangle shape, which is why, honestly, people talk a lot about the black triangles they see. And within like the UFO phenomenon, I definitely think there's factions of it. I definitely believe that there is something else besides us. But on the other side, you got to expect that humans are going to try to recreate things. So, I think that there's just as much the phenomenon that's human, planes that haven't actually been categorized as like, this is a military jet yet. Just as much as there is validity to, there being extraterrestrials. So it's like, especially around or especially around military bases, if somebody calls me and says they saw something weird, like, I'm not even going to doubt it. More than likely, I'm just going to assume it's military. And if you got something that's extraterrestrial, like, that's just an extra bonus.
Yeah, if anybody's never lived by a military base, let me speak the joys of this, okay? I have planes that are cutting over my house sometimes. They're so low, the whole house shakes. I mean, they're cutting trees. And when the Marines show up, I know, because every time the Marines come to train with the Army at Fort Bragg, everything goes boom, boom, boom all night. And the first time my girlfriend was ever over, she had never experienced that. We're sitting here watching TV, and the house was rattling, and they're blowing stuff up. And I'm watching TV, and it doesn't faze me. I'm so used to it. She was like, "What is that?" scared her to death. It was funny, but a few years ago, this was a kind of a cover up. A guy that lives a few miles down from me went out his back door, and there was a Humvee hanging out of a tree. The military screwed up on a drop. The parachute was on the top of the tree, and I didn't get to actually physically see it, but it was a big story locally. This thing with Humvee was hanging from a tree. On the news, they said that it wasn't a big deal. There was nothing. There was no ammunition. There was nothing dangerous. Blah 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 blah. And that was a lie. The ones who actually saw it were telling everybody it was loaded down with ammunition. They were going on the things they saw, and the military was there like that collecting it. And then when they took a picture for the paper, it was empty. So they if you didn't live in this direct area that I'm at, you wouldn't know that. But the locals that were right there and seen it were like, "That's bullcrap." They said that thing was all kinds of. It was a lot of money sitting inside that thing, and they covered it up and said that nothing happened. It was just a missed airdrop.
Man, talk about lucky that it didn't fall into like the wrong person's yard, because I was thinking in my head, like, if I have a Humvee that just randomly shows up in my yard, like, that's just my taxpayer dollars coming back at me, like free vehicle, right? But if it's loaded to the gills, good luck with that one.
Could you imagine like a Burt Gummer from Tremors or something saying that? He's like, jackpot.
You got some guy who's just like post or apocalyptic like prepper or something like that, but he's like on the bad end of things, where he's like expecting that after the apocalypse happens, he's just going to become like a warlord. So he's just like, all right, I already got my vehicle, I ain't even got to worry about till after the apocalypse to build it up. Mad Max, here I come.
Yeah, that guy would scare me to death.
So kind of starting to wrap up a little bit towards the end. I always like to do words of wisdom from the guest to the listener. So if there's any words of wisdom we might want to bestow on the listeners, be it to maybe people that are inspiring to wrestle, people that are inspiring to write books, whoever you kind of want to gear it towards, what might your words of wisdom be?
Just do it. I ain't trying to rob Nike, but
that's Shia LaBeouf. Just do it.
I've done a lot of things in my life that are unconventional. I've tried to do a lot of things. Most of them haven't worked out in the long run, but if you want to get into a sport, like if you want to be a wrestler, find the right people and do it. Don't worry if somebody doesn't like what you're doing. Do it. If you want to write a book, if you want to become this, become that, just try it. I mean, if you fail, you fail. It's not a big deal. Keep going, have a backup, make sure you can take care of yourself. But if you want to do something, try it, because like you don't know what's going to happen. I've tried being an actor. I'm actually in an acting class now, but I say a month and a half ago, I was in a pilot for a new TV show. I'm just a zombie and I get killed, but it's called Broken Raven. Me and a buddy of mine went. He's one of the main zombies who gets just like lit up and killed. But it was a start. So when that show comes out, I will have a spot in the show somewhere as a zombie. So I mean, that's acting. It's not a big. I'm not one of the main cast members. It's not big Hollywood, but it's getting your foot somewhere. So I mean, you may make it, you may not. But if you just sit around the couch, and cry and say I wanted to, you're never going to. So get out and try it. I mean, you may make it. You just don't know. Life's too short to question stuff. And if somebody says, when I first started acting, I had people making jokes out of it. When I first started wrestling, I had people making jokes out of it. I didn't care. I mean, do what you want to do and see how far you can get. I mean, you can live a normal, boring life if you want, or, I know people who never leave the county they're in. I travel all over the place as much as I can. I love the Caribbean. I've been to Canada. We're hopefully going to Australia next year. So, I mean, if anybody wants to do something, do it. Don't let a naysayer stop you. And, don't care what other people think. Just go out and give it a try.
Ain't that the truth? And even to extend on that a little bit too, if there's something that you thoroughly enjoy, like you're going to be your own worst critic on it. So don't let anybody else get in the way of it. Like it doesn't matter if you're going to be the biggest one doing it. Like at the end of the day, if you enjoy doing it, if you do it your entire life and you never go anywhere with it, as long as you're having fun doing it, like who cares, man? Like don't let anybody get in the way, and don't let your own mindset get in the way of like, I wish I was here. Just enjoy the fun, enjoy the process of it rather than like where you think you're going to get in the end of it.
Yeah, and definitely don't worry if you're going to make it or not. Do it and enjoy it. Have fun. If you make it to what you're trying to do, that's just that much better. But, enjoy your life and do what you love to do.
Truth. Stay tuned, guys. This is our last break. But if you enjoyed the show and you think I deserve it, then please leave a review or rating for the show on iTunes, Spotify, or any other podcatcher you happen to use. Your continued support is what makes the show possible, and your opinions go a long way to help the show grow and improve. So thank you. Now feel free to skip past these ads so we can get back to the show. And we are back, so let's get back to it. And it's talking about things that you enjoy doing, and I'm sure a lot of people also enjoy reading. Talking about your books, where can people come and find them at? And also, do you offer signed copies of your books? And also, if anybody wanted to follow you on social media, keep up to date on these future books that are coming out, where can people find all your information at?
If you want to find the books, you can go on Amazon Books. Look up author J.E. Shook. There is two of us. But pretty much the books I named off are mine. There's another guy. He's got a couple of books out. If you want to help him out, go right ahead. We both have the same name. You can go to Zombie Media Publication. That's my publisher. He's got them. You can look up J.E. Shook on Facebook, J.E. Shook on Instagram. Look up Jeb Shook on Facebook. That's the main thing. I'm trying to get books in Barnes and Noble and different bookstores, possibly with Solomon Jacks. If anybody follows me on social media, I will. Anything that happens, I'll throw it up on there, and hopefully, within the next couple of years, have several more books come out.
Well, man, I appreciate you making the time to come on today. It was a really fun conversation diving into your books and everything. And, maybe after you drop a couple more books, we can come back around to it, talk about those books, and go for another round, man.
Oh, absolutely.
If you enjoyed today's conversation and want to show some love, smash that follow icon and share today's episode with a friend. Grassroots support from listeners like you is exactly how the show grows, so thank you. And if anyone would like to get in touch with me for any reason whatsoever, you guys can do so through email, which is inquiriesofourealitypodcast@outlook.com, or through social media. Instagram and Facebook are the two that I'm the most active on. Or you guys can get a hold of me through the submission form, which of course is available right at the top of the link tree. Or the last way you guys can get a hold of me is through texting or calling the hotline. That number is 313-364-1551. And usually it goes directly to voicemail. I don't typically answer those. I'll end up giving you guys a call back, so you guys don't have to be afraid that I'll end up answering on the first ring. And the other thing that I wanted to extend with that is if anybody wants to give some shout-outs in the show, some birthday wishes, or just wants to say their opinions on the show, feel free to call into that number and leave a voicemail, and I will start trying to play them in the front of the show for you guys. And if any of you guys have some free time, don't forget to go and check out the awesome friends of the show in the community, IKNOWSQUATCH, Snarly on Natural Products, Cryptoteeology, and Big Ape Threads, and our friends with affiliate links, Dimension Devices, Oregon-ite, and Sticker Mule, with additional discounts and credits available. More information on those, of course, is available down in the show description. And every single thing that I mentioned throughout the show is all available in the link tree, which is available down in that show description. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed today's conversation. Hope today's show has connected some dots in your own reality, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Have a good night, everybody.
Reality isn't what it seems. I'm Dr. D's taking aboard a craft with a tractor beam. Is life a simulation or an astral dream? Aliens travel through black holes in different galaxies. Life is a bizarre odyssey, with a mic talking about philosophy. Well, Bigfoot is stalking campers as a Wendigo walks through the woods of sharpened antlers, using a Ouija board to talk to the dead like a necromancer.